What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I guess ICE has just been doing too good of a job, and the courts are starting to take notice. Check this out, you guys. Judge temporarily bars feds from using tear gas pepper spray against reporters in Broadview. Okay, so against reporters. Now, what this is meant to do, once again, they're trying to drum up some manipulation right here and then trying to make you think, oh, well, ICE is just shooting this at reporters for no apparent reason. Oh, these people are just getting shot all over the place. Well, once again, you know, if we put on our critical thinking caps here for a second, why would ICE want to do this in the first place? Secondly, don't they know that reporters are going to report that they were shot with pepper spray or tear gas or any of these other measures to crowd control, if you will? They're going to report on this, that they were shot for no apparent reason. So don't you think it would cross their mind to maybe not do that because they're being scrutinized extremely closely? No, they don't think about things like this. They just run with these blanket narratives. What's going on, folks, is these people are rioting in front of these ICE facilities. They are, as a matter of fact, preventing ICE from conducting their duties, from doing their damn job. And these people, they're getting in the way, and they're basically causing harm to not only themselves, but to the people around them, by just getting in the way of federal law enforcement doing their damn job. It's all nonsense. Like, I still don't understand this idea. Hey, let's go out there and protest ICE and block what they're trying to do and then riot right in front of these people, throw bottles and rocks and, you know, concrete milkshakes at these people. Why? What is the point? What are you trying to stop? Do you think they're not going to do their job or something? Do you think what you're doing by protesting them is going to stop the Trump administration from having them conduct the mass deportation operation? Do you think that's going to work? I guess they do think that's going to work, but no, that's not going to work. You're wasting your time and you are bringing harm to yourself. And it's a ridiculous mindset for these people to have to get out there and do this. Let's get into this story because it's, once again, they're trying to portray a narrative that just doesn't align with reality too much. A federal judge ruled Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents at the Broadview facility cannot use riot control weapons like tear gas, pepper spray, or lethal or less lethal bullets against reporters, protesters, and members of the clergy who aren't posing an immediate threat to the safety of law enforcement. Okay, so basically that ruling, it's completely void because the ICE agents were not deploying any of those measures against reporters or protesters or members of the clergy, right? Because apparently a pastor got shot in the head. And they're trying to claim that all these ICE agents that were on a rooftop were laughing at him while shooting him with pepper balls. Okay, like as if you would notice this while there's a riot going on around you. Like, are you kidding me? There's a riot. People are fighting with ICE agents, and you mean to tell me you can pick out this guy on a roof, or a team of guys on a roof, laughing at you because you got shot in the head with a pepper ball? Now, what I would ask is, what did you do to get shot in the head with a pepper ball? That's what I would ask. He claims he was on his knees praying. Yeah, I'm sorry. Look, maybe that is the case, but, you know, maybe they missed. You ever thought about that? Maybe they were trying to shoot at somebody else and just so happened to get you because you're kneeling while people are rioting and fighting with ICE agents. Yeah, I don't think that's such a good spot to be kneeling and praying. And what are you praying for? The safety of the protesters, maybe? Hopefully it's not to keep illegals in the country, because most of the people that's being deported are criminals. As a matter of fact, you could say, it could be argued that all of them that are being deported are criminals. Even though, you know, generally we say that criminals are people that break the law. Well, you know, just so happens if you come across the border illegally and you're in the country illegally, you are violating federal laws. I think it's USC 18 USC, I believe. I could be wrong about that. I just love this though. U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis on Thursday granted a temporary restraining order sought by a group of Chicago journalists who claimed their First Amendment rights had been violated by federal immigration agents at a suburban processing facility. That order took effect Thursday morning and is set to last 14 days. That ruling comes after the Chicago Headline Club, Chicago Newspaper Guild, Local 34071, Block Club Chicago, and other media organizations, journalists, and protesters sued the Trump administration this week, claiming ICE agents in Broadview have engaged in a pattern of extreme brutality they claimed was a concerted and ongoing effort to silence the press and civilians. I would say that all of those people are rioting, and yeah, that is called insurrection, my dude. All of those people are insurrectionists. Now, do you want to argue reality, or do you want to argue the extremities here? Do you want to argue semantics? Do you want to argue hyperbole? Because we can make all the arguments we want to. I could make the argument in the opposite direction, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to base my decisions, my opinions, in reality. The reality is, you guys are obstructing law enforcement here, and you need to stop because, once again, it is in violation of the law, right? You can go and protest as long as you're not obstructing the functions of society. In other words, you cannot obstruct federal law enforcement, and that's exactly what you guys are doing. Not only that, but considering the heightened tensions of the situation we have going on right now, especially in Chicago with the high crime, and considering the ICE agents have been being terrorized, they've been attacked relentlessly over and over and over again all across the country, I feel it's completely justified for these people to crowd disperse whenever you're blocking their path. Right? Once again, you cannot obstruct federal law enforcement. You cannot obstruct local law enforcement. You cannot obstruct law enforcement at all. That is a violation of the law. It's called obstruction of justice. And you can go to jail for that, possibly. It's not a long sentence. I ain't going to lie about that. It just depends on the severity of the obstruction, right? But that's what you guys are engaging in. That is the reality of the situation. Right? I could argue in the other way that it's an insurrection and you guys all need sedition conspiracy charges, right? But I'm not going to do that. Once again, that's just hyperbole. But you guys cannot fight with law enforcement. Once again, January 6th, that's what they did. They served their time, didn't they? As a matter of fact, many innocent, peaceful protesters were caught up in that mix and went to jail because of this. I don't wish that upon anybody. Not January 6th defendants and not these people either. But what they need to understand is you cannot obstruct law enforcement. But they don't get that, folks. They think that that's their First Amendment right to obstruct the federal law enforcement. And it's not. That has nothing to do with your speech. It's insane, y'all. The Chicago Headline Club stood up for the First Amendment, and the judge delivered a significant victory for press freedom, the Headline Club's board of directors said in a statement Thursday. ICE agents have repeatedly deployed tear gas, pepper balls, and rubber bullets against crowds of protesters outside the Broadview facility. Yeah, I wouldn't call them protesters. Once again, obstructionists, yes. I wouldn't even call them rioters, right? Because there have been a little bit of rioting, right? When you throw a glass bottle or rocks or bricks or anything at law enforcement, that, my friend, it goes beyond obstruction, and you just assaulted federal law enforcement. So I'm being extremely fair in this by calling them obstructionists. Beyond affecting those protesters exercising their First Amendment rights, those munitions have also affected first responders, local police, and media who are in the area. Well, you know what? Once again, folks, that is one of the risks that you take when you are on the ground doing journalism. trying to get in with the crowds and record all this for the history books. As a matter of fact, that is the risk that you take. You could get caught up in the riot. Once again, you should maybe back up, right? Know what you're getting yourself into. That's all I'm saying on that. In doing so, the lawsuit claimed, federal agents have aimed to suppress speech and dissent. For weeks, federal forces sent to Chicago have terrorized residents. Steve Art of the Lovey and Lovey law firm that filed the suit said in a statement. They have used incredible violence against civilians, against demonstrators, against religious and political leaders, and against the press. They hope to scare us into silence and submission. But the community here in Chicago will not be bullied. Is that so? You know what? You know what I would say to that? You know, if these people did not show up in front of this ICE facility, none of this would happen. You know, this reminds me of a story of a guy that I don't know because I'm making this up as I go. Of a guy that walked out into the middle of the highway and got hit by a car and then tried to sue the driver of that car for hitting him. Well, dude, you know, you walk out into the middle of traffic knowing that there's speeding cars that can't stop fast enough before they'll hit you. That's what we have going on here, folks. These people are intentionally obstructing federal law enforcement and then crying about it when they get pepper sprayed. It's some of the most ridiculous actions that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Because, one, you know, protesting against ICE. Okay, you're protesting against law enforcement here. You're protesting against us enforcing our laws. That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Second thing, you are not only protesting, you know, law enforcement, but then you're going to engage in criminality in doing so. So, once again, where are your priorities here? Do you guys have any principles at all? And then you want to cry about the First Amendment because you couldn't speak, because your nose was running and your eyes were running and you couldn't see or smell anything or taste anything because you got hit in the face with a pepper ball, for crying out loud. Like, cry me a freaking river is all I'm going to say about that. Nobody cares about your First Amendment rights at this point because nobody is stopping your speech whatsoever. Nobody is. Not the ICE agents. They're not stopping your speech at all. If you were not obstructing law enforcement, you would not have gotten pepper sprayed. That's what I'm going to say about that. The accountability culture, or the lack of accountability culture in this country, is just wildly off the charts. These people cannot see that their own actions caused whatever happened to them, and now they're trying to blame everybody else in the world for what happened to them. They put themselves into the line of fire and then cry because they got hit. That is the height of stupidity, folks. It really is. Attorneys for the Trump administration claim that granting the temporary restraining order would dictate crowd control policy in ways that would tie the hands of federal law enforcement officers even in circumstances of imminent danger. They argued the order would risk bogging this court down in micromanagement of crowd control decisions by federal law enforcement. They are kind of right about that. And it's a little bit of hyperbole because if you go back and look at the order, it does mention imminent danger, like if these people pose an imminent threat. But, you know, if also I'm being realistic here, you can't just obstruct federal law. That is a violation of the law. So what they need to do now is they need a lot more law enforcement. So when these people do obstruct, instead of getting pepper sprayed or tear gassed, they just all get arrested. That's what's going to happen now because of this judge's order. Many, many more people are going to be arrested for obstruction of justice. It is what it is, folks. That's what they're asking for. Book Club Chicago executive editor Stephanie Luley said in a statement that since September 19th, at least 4 employees or freelancers have reported being hit with pepper balls and subjected to tear gas by federal agents in Broadview. Once again, you know the risks, what you're getting yourself into. Sorry. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have been in the crowd right there where you are also obstructing federal law enforcement. An ICE agent has also been accused of firing a pepper ball at a CBS Chicago reporter outside the ICE facility, allegedly when no protesters were present. That incident has prompted a criminal investigation by Broadview police. Ellis's order applies to all federal law enforcement personnel, officers, and agents deployed across the Northern District of Illinois, including all personnel in the Chicago area who are part of the Department of Homeland Security's Midway Blitz immigration enforcement operation. The parties are due back in court for a hearing on October 23rd when the 14-day window of the temporary restraining order expires to discuss future actions. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I just love this, y'all. Like, these people are just ridiculously stupid, if you ask me. Once again, you jump into a wood chipper or, put your hand into the meat grinder and pull back a nub and wonder why that happened. You want to blame the guy that had turned the machine on? Really? The machine was already turned on like hours ago. It was just running, and you stuck your hand in there. You want to blame other people for your own actions, for your own faults, for taking a step that you knew the consequences might be a pepper ball in the face. But yet you're going to blame ICE for this. And you're going to stop them from actually conducting their duties or whatever. Like, it's all absurd, y'all. These people in Chicago need to be brought to heel. The Trump administration needs to go much harder on these people. Once again, like I said, this is going to force them to arrest anybody obstructing. No chances. Right? Once again, zero tolerance for these people. That's what I would say about that. Zero freaking tolerance, because you can't just obstruct law enforcement. It violates the law. They have every right to arrest these people that are obstructing. They are being merciful, as a matter of fact, by trying to disperse you first. We've seen video after video after video. Anytime one of these transports are coming in or going out, These ICE agents, they go out there and they try to disperse the crowd to get them out of the way of these buses that are coming and going. They do that. That is nice. Once again, they don't have to do that. They could just allow the bus to come up, and if those people don't move, arrest every single one of them, those people. They could do that. But that would be kind of tyrannical, don't you think? They would have the justification to do it, because once again, you would look at that situation and say, yep, they were obstructing. Absolutely. That's all you could say about that. But they're not doing that, are they? No, they're asking nicely, please move. Please move. Please move. Please move. And when they don't move, then they push. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Then they get hit with a water bottle that just so happened to be frozen for some reason. Or they get hit with a rock or a brick. And then they wonder why they get pepper sprayed. Or have tear gas deployed against them. Are you kidding me? Then they want to portray the narrative that they're just peaceful protesters getting tear gassed. See, this is the lies and manipulation of the corporate press. That entire news article was a manipulation, folks, because they're not telling you. Notice, they didn't tell you what these quote-unquote reporters and clergymen did to get pepper sprayed at all. They don't ever give you both sides of the story. They give you one side of the story. That's it. That's it. Don't you find something a little bit odd about that? You only get one side of the story. That's a little bit fishy, if you ask me, at any point in time. But I think I've rambled on for long enough. You guys let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. I imagine I already know, folks, but like I said, y'all let me know. That's all I got. You guys, don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere that you can. That would be great. Click the join button. Sign up. Become a member. That's also great. The best way to help this channel expand and grow. But you guys do all that for me. And remember that God has a plan for everybody. And he loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all try to have a good day. And stay legitical. Peace.